Today we're looking at the history, the mystery, and the mayhem of the Norse universe.
Enter a world of enchantment, of enlightenment, Meg's magical mansion.
Come, whoever you are, to Meg's magical mansion.
A virtual guest house for spiritual wayfarers.
A place where the ordinary becomes magical.
Where wisdom is yours for the asking.
And where your higher nature is just a wish away. Thanks for joining us here at the Magical Mansion. I'm Meg with my little helper, Alice Poopers, and of course, the scrumptious Miss Parfait.
Charmed.
Today, we have an episode for you all about the Norse Cosmology. You know, about the beliefs of the ancient Norse people, and some modern day people too, by the way. Who and what they believe in and why.
That's right. Modern day people tend to view things in a very linear way. You know, we think of time unfolding in a straight line, one event after another. Well, the Norse actually believed in something very different. They believed in a cyclical universe. You know, they basically believed that things happened and went round and round, which to me sounds infinitely more fun.
Sounds way more your speed, Parfait.
Totally.
And this universe is divided into 9 different worlds, which are all connected by the cosmic ash tree Yggdrasil.
Ooh, sounds like a really cool tree. You know, we're also going to take some time and learn about the creation story of the Norse universe. This is the story where Odin and his brothers actually made the universe out of a giant's body.
That's right. And we have a whole episode all about Odin, and I'll link it for you at the end of this episode. And as well as the beginning of the Norse universe, we'll also discuss the prophesied end and rebirth of the universe, known as Ragnarok.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, we all know that Odin was super obsessed with Ragnarok. And well, of course, we're also going to talk about the important deities who inhabit this really cool universe. Powerful beings who played important roles in the lives of human beings.
So let's take a peek into the Norse universe. The Norse universe. It's crazy, chaotic, expansive, the epic stories of the rise and fall of this universe and the characters and people and gods and deities that inhabit it are just fascinating. The stories of Norse mythology were told in epic poems that were passed down by word of mouth. Originally written as minstrel poems, they were passed along from singer to singer, poet to poet, until finally many of the poems were finally preserved in the early 13th century in a volume called the Poetic Edda, which is the modern name we give this collection of anonymous poems that were all written in Old Norse. And they wrote in what is called alliterative verse, which had a lot of alliteration and not a lot of rhyming to it. Another volume called the Codex Regius, also written in the 13th century, has many poems transcribed there. And we have the Prose Edda, which is an Old Norse textbook from the early 13th century. It is largely attributed to Snorri Sturluson from about the year 1220. Some say it was written or compiled or edited by him. And this was originally written to help both poets and readers of poetry understand that form, alliterative verse, how it worked, how skaldic poetry used many expressions and metaphors. They were called kennings, and they were kind of fanciful ways of saying things, like the whale's road might mean the sea. And you had to know what they meant, and the Prose Edda helped explain the kennings that many poets used. So the Prose Edda was sort of like a textbook that could help you interpret the poems that you might find in the Poetic Edda or the Codex Regius. Either way, it's important to remember that these things were not written down until the 13th century, and everything before that has merely been passed down by word of mouth. There's a lot of things that don't make sense. There's a lot of things that counteract and, counter-indicate each other, so you just sort of have to go with the mess. And today I'm going to tell you the whole story of how the universe began, developed, and finally ends in the Norse world. The Norse universe begins with Muspelheim, the first world to exist. This is a place of light and heat. It is associated with the direction south. The flames are so hot that only the fire giants who are native to this land can stand to live here. And a fire giant named Surt, or Surtur, sits and guards Muspel's border with his flaming sword. And at the end of the world, we're going to see Surtur, and again, because he will be coming at the end of the world, Ragnarok, to vanquish all the gods and burn the world with fire. So don't forget him. We're going to see him again later. We also have Niflheim, which is associated with the direction north. This is a cold, dark realm full of ice and frost. It's very dark. A deep, heavy cold comes from Niflheim. However, it is also a place of order and peace, as opposed to Muspelheim, which is very chaotic and crazy and burning with heat. And in the middle, between the icy cold and the fiery heat, is Ginnungagap, which is a great void where the heat and cold meet, and where the heat from Muspelheim and the cold from Niflheim meet, a thawing drop appeared, which turned into a running liquid that grew and grew into a giant frost ogre named Ymir. And Ymir represents the chaos that existed before creation. And while this giant, Ymir, slept, he sweat, and from the sweat under his left arm came a man and a woman. And of course, in keeping with some of the craziness that happens in Norse mythology, one of Ymir's legs made a son with the other leg. So his legs were getting the giggity on, and they had a son. And thus began the race of the frost ogres. And these thawing frosts created a cow named Odhumla. And 4 rivers of milk ran from her udders, which fed Ymir. And Udhumla licked salty ice blocks, as cows will do. And after one day of licking salty ice blocks, she found there was a man's hair in there. So she kept licking. And after 2 days of licking the salty ice block, she had freed his head. And believe it or not, after 3 days of licking that salty ice block, she had completely freed an entire man. A big, strong, handsome man. And this was Buri. And Buri had a son named Bor, and Bor married the giantess Bestla. And Bor and Bestla had 3 sons, Odin, Vili, and Vi. And Odin, along with his brothers, Vili and Vi, rules the heaven and earth. But Odin is the greatest and most famous of them all. And Odin, Vili, and Vi kill the giant Ymir. And Ymir's blood flows and drowns out all the frost ogres, except for Bergelmir and his wife, who escape in a lure, which is a hollowed out tree that could be used as a boat or a coffin. And they managed to escape to continue the line of frost ogres. So Odin and his brothers carry Ymir's body to the middle of Ginnungagap, right in the center of everything. And that is where they created the world from Ymir's body. His blood became the seas and the lakes. His flesh became the earth. His hair they used for trees. And from his bones they built up the mountains. His teeth and his jaw and any broken bones were turned into rocks and stones and pebbles. And again, continuing our delightful story, maggots began to appear in Ymir's flesh, and the gods gave them human understanding and appearance and created the dwarves, who lived in the earth and the rocks. And Ymir's skull was used to create the sky. It was set up over the earth, and under each corner Odin, Vili, and Ve put a dwarf, and they named the dwarfs North, South, East, and West. And Ymir's brains were tossed into the sky to form the clouds. They used sparks and embers from Muspel to create light for the heavens and the earth, and they set the stars on their appropriate paths in the sky. And the earth was surrounded by a deep sea. Odin and his brothers gave the Jotun, the giants, the land by the sea. As a matter of fact, the land of the Jotuns surrounded this land they had created. And to protect themselves from the giants, from the Jotun, Odin and his brothers built an inland stronghold from the eyebrows of Ymir called Midgard. Odin, Vili, and Ve found 2 trees near the sea, and from them they created a man and a woman. Odin gave the man and woman life and spirit. Vili gave them understanding, movement, intelligence, and emotions. And Ve gave them the 5 senses and some clothes and some names. The man was created from an ash tree, and the woman from an elm. So they were called Ash or Ask and Embla. And from these 2 come all the people of Midgard. And in the center of this world, Odin and his brothers built a fortress, a stronghold, named Asgard. And Odin sits there on a high seat overseeing the whole world, where he can see and understand everything. And Odin marries Frigg, creating the Aesir family of gods. And from Odin and Frigg come all of the inhabitants of Asgard. All members of this family are divinities, and this is why Odin is called the All-Father. He is the father of all the gods, men, women, and everything that he created. And of course, Norse mythology is always a little confused and chaotic and muddled, so let's dive into some of the real confusing stuff. So the earth was Odin's daughter and his wife, but he's married to Frigg, but I think he had lots of wives and mistresses. But anyway, I don't know what that exact relationship was with the earth, but something happened there, and they had a son, and that son was Thor. And Thor dominates all creatures with his might and strength. And the gods built a rainbow bridge called Bifrost to connect the heavens and the earth. And at the center of the Norse universe, holding everything together, is Yggdrasil, the tree of life, Odin's horse, chief sanctuary of the gods, the best and greatest trees. The trees of this giant ash tree spread all the way from the heavens above, and its roots ascend all the way down into the deepest depths of the earth. The well-being of the cosmos depends on the health of Yggdrasil. It connects the 9 worlds of the Norse universe, and it holds up and supports the entire universe. Now, there are 3 well springs that feed Yggdrasil. The first one is Urd, and this is a spring that is guarded by 3 Norns. Norns are deities that can shape the course of human destinies. And there are 3 Norns who weave the threads of fate and care for Yggdrasil by watering the tree from this well. And this is where the gods hold their daily council meeting. They come every day from Asgard. They come over the Bifrost Bridge, Rainbow Bridge, and they hold their council meetings here at this spring every day. And some say this spring is actually located up in the sky, as this route comes up from below ground and curves up into the sky to drink from this magical wellspring. The second spring is Vergelmir, located in Niflheim, And this is a bubbling, boiling spring. And liquid flows from the antlers of a great stag. And it is the source of many rivers. This spring has many snakes in and near it. And also, this is where we find the dragon Nidhogg. And the third wellspring, Mimisbrunner, feeds the root that is in the territory of the giants, the Jotuns, Jotunheimer. And it is associated with the being Mimir. And it contains much wisdom, so much wisdom that Odin gave one of his eyes to be allowed to drink from this magical wellspring, and in exchange he received great untold wisdom. Now these three wellsprings feed the great ash tree of life, Yggdrasil, and the tree holds up the 9 worlds, or the 9 realms. The Old Norse verses don't really tell us exactly what worlds they are and where they're arranged, how even they make up the 9 realms. So all the maps and diagrams and things that you see drawn up are really pure speculation. We do know that there were 2 axes, like a vertical and a horizontal axis, that sort of supported the whole world. And way down at the bottom, below everything, was Helheim, ruled by Hel, who was Loki's daughter. This was the land of the dead, but again, it's a lot of confusion and confliction because some also say Niflheimr is the land of the dead, so there's some confusion there. Svartalfheim is the land of the dwarfs, who are skilled craftsmen. They are the one who created Thor's famous hammer. Muspelheimer, as we have already said, is the realm of fire. It is the home of the fire giants, and it is guarded by Surtur with his flaming sword. Vanaheimer is the home to the Vanir gods. They are gods associated with fertility, wisdom, and ability to see the future and divine. And in the middle of all of this is Midgard. It is our inhabited world where humans live. And it is located in the middle of chaos because it is surrounded by Jotunheimer. And Jotunheimer is the land of giants. It is a land of chaos, anarchy, and it is always winter there. And of course, we already spoke about Niflheimer, the cold, misty world where those who die of illness or old age go there. Also, the land of dishonorables, where warriors who did not die in a glorious battle but died some sort of a coward's death go. Alfheim is the land of the elves, who are demigods. They're beautiful, luminous creatures of light, beauty, and innocence. So Alfheim truly is a fairyland. And of course, we have Asgard at the very top of the tree, the land of the Aesir gods. It is at the very top of Yggdrasil, and it is connected to Midgard by Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. And of course, Valhalla and Folkvanger are located within Asgard. And while we don't know exactly how all these worlds are connected or where they are in the Great Tree of Life, I think that a lot of people who are into Norse mythology have kind of come to some ideas about how they see the Tree of Life functioning. And of course, all of this whole creation story, all leading up the human race and everything with Odin as the great god, all eventually is going to come to an end. And that is Ragnarok. And the idea of Ragnarok really drives Odin, and it kind of drives the whole Norse universe. Because Odin is trying constantly to find ways to stop Ragnarok from coming. And Ragnarok is a cascading series of catastrophic events that will cause the end of the world and destroy Odin and all the gods. It ends with a final battle between the gods, and they're taking on the demons and the giants. And when the world is finally destroyed, the new world will be reborn. So the word Ragna comes from the word idea of gods, and Rock from the word doom or end. Ragnarok is really a twilight of the god. And it will begin with the death of Odin's son Balder, who is the god of light. And when Balder foresees his own death in a dream, his mother, Frigg, has all the creatures, all the elements, metals, trees, stones, everything, all swear an oath that they will not harm Balder. But of course, mistletoe is thought to be too young, too slender, too silly to need to take the oath. But of course, Loki, who is always a trickster god, fools the blind god Hod into throwing a shaft of mistletoe at Balder, killing Balder. And Hel, Loki's daughter, who is goddess of the underworld, promises to return Balder to life if all living things will cry and mourn for him. And they all do, except there's always one, isn't there? The giantess Thok, who turns out to be Loki in disguise. She will not cry. So after the death of Balder, that is followed by an extremely harsh winter. Fimbulwinter, mighty winter, where people starve, resources become scarce, and people begin to fight one another for whatever's left. And it becomes a constant state of twilight until finally the sun, the moon, and the stars are all completely hidden. And this is followed by a great many giant earthquakes, which release Fenrir, the great wolf, and Jormungandr, the serpent of Midgard, the very poisonous serpent. They are freed and go on a path of wild destruction. And of course, the sky will then split apart, and Surtur, the great fire giant we heard about earlier, will lead the sons of Muspelheim across the Rainbow Bridge, which will shatter the bridge. Loki, who has been trapped beneath the earth, will escape, and Loki will take off in his ship Naglfar, which is made of the nails of dead men. And he will release the legions of hell, walking corpses of people who died shameful deaths. So Loki and his legions from hell will join the fire giants along with Fenrir and Jormungandr, the wolf and the giant serpent, on the battlefield of Vigrid. And Heimdall, who is the watchman of the gods, sounds the alarm, and the gods of Asgard assemble, and they are joined by all the warriors who died a grand or good or glorious death in battle. You know, the people who are in Valhalla and Folkvanger. And the final, last epic battle is fought. Odin is swallowed by Fenrir. Thor is poisoned by Jormungandr as he kills it. And Vidar, Odin's son, avenges Odin by killing Fenrir the wolf. The god Freyr is defeated by Surtur the fire giant, and Loki and Heimdall finally deal each other a mortal blow. And Surtur raises his sword of flames, and the world burns, except for Yggdrasil, the great tree. The world ends in darkness and sinks into the sea. And after that, the earth rises again, and a couple, Leif and Leifrathir, emerge from the world tree to reproduce the world. And Vidar and Vali, Odin's sons, survive and establish a dwelling at the plains of Ida, the former site of Asgard. And Thor's sons, Modi and Magni, retrieve Thor's hammer and join them there, as do Balder, who has been resurrected, and his brother Hod. And they form a new pantheon of gods to rule over this new world. And this is just a basic overview of the Norse mythology, the Norse cosmology, and how they viewed the universe. There's so many epic stories and tales that you can find about all the great Norse warriors, their battles and adventures, and all the crazy tricks that Loki played. It is such a fantastic treasure of amazing stories that teach great lessons about life and how we react and handle things. It's one of the things I love most about the Norse mythology is the sort of humanness of the gods and goddesses that inhabit it. And like all great mythologies, the lessons that can be learned from these stories, the epic tales that have been handed down, it's tremendous. And you could see why people like J.R.R. Tolkien were inspired to create his Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit and all of those books, very much modeled after the Norse cosmology. So, I hope you enjoyed this tiny, tiny little peek into the world of Norse mythology.
Well, that's our look at the Norse universe and how it all started with the giant Ymir. And these stories are just so epic and so amazing. I can see why Marvel Comics wants to turn these Norse deities into superheroes.
Absolutely. You know, the pantheon of Norse gods and goddesses is huge. So if there are any particular deities that you would like us to do an episode on, just let us know.
With both the Seer and Vanir deities, there's over 60 gods and goddesses, which is like
a lot.
Amazing. And you know, I love Freya. And for me, I want to, when I die, go to Folkvangr. Which I know you don't want to go there.
I don't know, maybe. I don't know.
Well, anyway, we did a whole episode on Freya that you got to check out. It's on our Power Goddesses playlist. It's really cool.
So whether you hope to go to Folkvangr or Valhalla, we hope you enjoyed this brief overview into the Norse universe.
If you enjoy Norse mythology and witchcraft and want to learn more, please check out Tova, the Norse witch. She's right here on YouTube.
And we love her channel, so we really want to give her a plug. She's highly knowledgeable on all things Norse, witchcraft, mythology, and I highly recommend that you check her out. I'm going to leave a link for her channel in the description down below. And if you want to know more about the Norse universe, that's somebody you want to go check out. And don't forget, in the words of Buddha, 1,000 candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the candle will not be shortened.
Happiness never decreases by being shared.
So thank you for sharing your time and attention with us here today at Meg's Magical Mansions.
Until next time, toodles!